Aloha and welcome to Work ReImagined, streaming live on ThinkTech Hawaii, brought to you from Honolulu, Hawaii. Why do we need to reimagine work? Well, as we're seeing all the massive disruptions to our labor markets due to automation and the pandemic, we've got to start asking ourselves questions about what is work going to look like as we return to some type of normal after the pandemic, and how will automation affect the kinds of skills we're going to need for the jobs of the future? On Work Reimagined, we explore these questions with innovators and entrepreneurs who are creating solutions that help us navigate the effects of these disruptions while making a positive social impact in people's lives. I'm Ruby Menon, your host, and my guest today is Kelsea Yamashita, an applications recruiter for TEKsystems, and they provide technology talent management and services. Kelsea and I will discuss what skills employers are looking for and trends that are happening in the labor market. Kelsea, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Aloha and welcome.
Aloha, and thanks for having me. I'm actually really excited to be here. I haven't seen this program before, but it's I did do some digging, and it's very cool that you guys have a live broadcast for technology.
Yeah, well, ThinkTech Hawaii is kind of an institution now. It's been around for quite a while. Um,
I love it.
I, I'd love to start with your story, Kelsea. Maybe you can start by telling us a little bit more about you. How did you get into the career path of an applications recruiter and your career with TEKsystems?
Yeah. So TEKsystems is actually my first job out of college. My background is mainly in human resources and entrepreneurship. That's what I majored in Scheidler at UH. And I was wondering when I got out, what do I do? Because I am a chatterbox and I have a background in sales and customer service. And I really couldn't imagine myself going into an office and just sitting down and like processing paperwork quite yet, which is one of my first impressions of HR when I first initially got out of school. Um, as I learned, there's not only that facet, talent acquisition is also a big portion of human resources. And my college counselor at Scheidler, Rick Varley, actually pointed me in the direction of TEKsystems and said,
Mm,
hey, this company might be for you because it's a lot of people of the same age demographic, a lot of people who are entrepreneurial in the sense that they um, foster a very high performance culture where people will just kind of go, make their own business and run things the way that they find to be best for them. And I thought, wow, that's great. That sounds like it's for me. And I learned more about TEKsystems and I was really interested because a lot of the business that we do is helping local clients. And I grew up here. So things like the HMSA building and the First Hawaiian Bank building in downtown, these places are landmarks of my home. And
mm,
to be able to kind of rewire and help on the staffing side of technology really makes me feel like I'm doing a difference
mm,
because it's hard to keep talent in Hawaii and it's
mhm.
hard to be competitive as a Hawaii business in the tech market when they're competing with the new like national companies that everybody can use online. So that's kind of where I came from.
That's an awesome story. And it's wonderful that TEKsystems is willing to give young college graduates an opportunity to kind of get their foot in the door. And, I'm an ex-HR person, so I can tell you that, yeah, there are parts of HR that are like extremely paper intensive. There's a ton of administrative
Payroll.
work, payroll. I used to hate payroll. Things like all the investigations and labor stuff like that. But I think the fun parts of HR, obviously, it's such a wonderful feeling to be able to tell a job applicant that they got a job, right? I mean, what a great
Mm-hmm.
service that you can do for people. Um, so that's one of the things I wanted to have our listeners have a better idea of what you as a recruiter in a talent management service like TEKsystems, what do you do? Because I think most people have the idea that a recruiter is somebody that's inside the company, right? They're usually the people
Mm-hmm.
you talk to when you're interviewing and all of that. But your role is a little bit different. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do as a recruiter, how you work with applicants?
Yeah. So as a recruiter, basically, in a nutshell, I talk to people and I build relationships with them and I help them towards their goals.
Mm,
In a broader sense, TEKsystems, we work with 45 different companies and we are a agency that helps staff them. So it's different than regular recruiting where I would be within the company and helping people come into my company.
mm,
I help people go into companies that they would enjoy being in. So that's
mm,
the part that that's one of the parts that I really like because I like having options and I like to give people options um, when it comes to like culture and job responsibilities. But
mm,
um, boiling it down again to what I do on the daily as a recruiter is I reach out to candidates that have skills that are marketable or skills that can be utilized at our clients, or I get referred folks that have those kinds of skills. Like we actually met through a referral.
right.
So
And I
yes,
recruited you to
so
come
I
on my show.
yes, see, so I'm a professional networker. um, as a recruiter, I just talk to candidates and I figure out what's best for them based on their skills, goals, and what I can do to help place them where they want to be and further those things. I also help with their resumes and refining
Mm,
what they want based on what their skills are. So a lot of people come to me and they say, "Hey, I am feeling like I need to move on, but I don't really know what I want to move on to yet." So I give them
mm,
market insight, tell them what's popular, what kind of skills they should go towards if they want to further their career,
mhm.
and give advice in that way too. Um, and when we finally kind of find an opportunity for my candidates that I sometimes keep up with for over a year or
Mhm,
years,
mhm,
then I help them prepare for the interview by telling them everything about the job, everything about the people they'll be interviewing with,
mhm,
how they should conduct themselves during an interview if it's been a while since they have. And then if they're offered the job, I get to give them the good news.
mhm,
And depending on how it is, I keep them updated with the HR process of that company,
mhm.
or I keep them um, rolling through our extensive paperwork to get them hired on as a TEKsystems contractor.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you do both then. They can work for you as a contractor, or you can actually place them inside a company. And from what you were
Yeah.
telling me, it sounds like you're almost like a career coach in some ways. Would you agree that you do a little bit of that in your role?
I like to think that I am. So my philosophy is the candidates are the experts at what they do. So I need
Hmm.
to be an expert on how to get them to the next level.
Ah, yes,
So I need to understand our clients. I need to
right.
understand where people fit because it's a huge life move that they're making. So
Yes.
I have to do my due diligence too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say? I'm assuming that you might have like some type of a vetting process in terms of, is this somebody that I can actually work with or help? What is it that you look for in potential applicants that might come to you and say, "Hey, help me make that move or find a new job or find a job."
Mhm. So the first thing I look for in candidates is if they're personable and if they're able to articulate their skills, because that
Mm,
helps me to figure out, first of all, like how well can I help this person.
mhm,
I get a lot of introduction calls that don't really go anywhere if somebody just doesn't know what they want to do, because then
mm,
I'll be presenting options that are not relevant to them and then they won't know what to do with them either.
mhm,
So a lot of it is kind of helping, like, can this candidate refine what they're itching for and
mhm,
talk to me about it. I also really enjoy like personable candidates and all of those things because I like to believe like the way that somebody treats a recruiter who is possibly calling them without a lot of reference on who they are.
mhm,
If they're able to talk to me and be really open and be very friendly, then they're probably going to be able to reach out to internal and external people within the company that I place them in without
mhm,
having any type of issues. Um, Other things that I look for is just like how motivated somebody is.
mhm,
What stage are they at when they're looking? Are they just kind of unhappy with something that happened today, or would they actually benefit from being in a better environment for them? Yeah, that's basically it. And then from the vetting process from there, we would do like, we would lock them down on an opportunity that they're interested in and have reference calls with people that they've worked with in the past, just so they can brag and vouch for them. And then we're able to wrap that all up and send it to our client and say, hey, this is Ruby. She's amazing. She worked on these projects, and these people can describe the project to you as well as how they felt when they worked with her.
So, when you're working in the tech sector, and this has been my experience since I've been working in the tech sector for several years, um, and you're trying to place, and I know I'm being, kind of stereotypical here, but engineers tend to be a little bit more introverted, and they're awesome at
Mm-hmm.
what they do. You put them in front of a tech stack, and they know exactly what to do. But sometimes they're a little shy, or the extroversion isn't quite there. Um, and so I was wondering if how do you coach people who might have some of those I don't know, shyness issues, or maybe can't quite
Yeah.
connect, or create that rapport that they would need to, let's say, with the company. Have you encountered that,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, and then what has been your approach with that type of situation?
Absolutely, I have. It's pretty common, and it's nothing to the fault of the person at all. It's really like, what is
No,
your job
no.
responsibility?
Hmm.
Yeah, because I'm not expecting somebody to banter back and have all of the jokes. If
Right.
they, especially if they spend 8 hours a day looking at their computer and like figuring out something super duper complex, they don't have time to talk.
Right.
But the way that I kind of try to vet them is like, well, I'll skew my questions to be a little bit more direct and easier to answer, so less nebulous from my end to them, so that they feel more comfortable speaking in a way that they are more comfortable, like zeros and ones. Like, do you do this? Do you not? And then I go from there. It's like, how do you do it? And what do you like about it? And then they tend to open up a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
Um, Also, I try to, like, this sounds weird, but I try to be a little more goofy, because I'm meeting them where they're at, which
Yeah.
means if I want them to build a relationship with me, then I got to give them more before they give me more.
Hmm.
Not everybody feels comfortable just giving more insight into themselves and their lives.
Yeah.
So I try to catch them off guard, make them laugh, and then they'll be more open with me in general.
Right.
As for how I coach them, I kind of I talk to them first, like, how do you feel about this going in? What are you nervous about? If And sometimes we'll go through like a mock interview, like, how would you answer this question? Or how would you answer that question? And if I feel the responses are um, too short or too vague, like, because some people don't have the same approach to a question that they don't know. Sometimes people will be super honest and they'll say like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, I coach them to kind of add on to that. Like, whatever you first say, like, I don't know, then you can say, but I want to find out.
Right.
Just to bridge that gap, to make sure that whatever shyness or more quietness is being held from the candidate side also kind of puts back the impression that there's they're still super willing to learn things, still super good fit for the job.
Well, that's an excellent segue, because the second part of this equation is, we've got the job candidate, but we also have the employers who have some very specific needs. Either they're looking for those hard technical skills. Obviously, in technology, you've got to have hard technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the research that I've been reading lately, especially in terms of where the future of work is going, is that there are certain soft skill types of qualities now that a lot of employers are looking for, along with the hard skills. And so I was wondering if you could speak to that. Like, what trends have you been seeing in the market in terms of what employers are looking for their next hire?
Yeah. Yes. So that's a very interesting thing. And the best way I can describe it is the way one of our managers described it. He says the person needs to have the it factor. And when you
The
dig
what
into what
factor? It
the
like
it
IT?
factor,
Oh, it
like
factor. Okay,
IT,
I haven't heard that.
yeah, like IT in
Oh, the
IT.
IT
Um,
factor.
yes. um, and it's basically like somebody needs to be sharp and even keeled and willing to learn and willing to reach out when they don't need when they don't know something. Um, what I think it is like being resourceful and being confident that you can learn things, because we don't go into our jobs with 100% of the qualifications, and we don't stay knowing our job to the perfect degree, because ideally you want to grow within your career. So you're not hiring somebody who is like a stationary image. You're hiring somebody who is a progressive person. The it factor really just means like, if thrown for a loop, how does this person navigate their way out? And that would be like a willingness to learn, a willingness to grow. And it doesn't necessarily mean this person is like the most outspoken, nicest person in the world, but if they're being thrown things that are not specifically in their lane, will they be able to diversify?
Yeah, and the thing that I remember the most also is just the social factor. I think is very important, because now more and more we don't work in a little cave all by ourselves. We have to interact with others, and we have to play nice in the sandbox with others, in order to be able to get our jobs done. Whatever our role is, we often have to collaborate. And as I do work, culture work with different companies, or if I remember my own experiences in HR, that has always been the tricky factor. It's like that person who was not willing to play nice with the other teammates were the ones who probably had the most difficult time. And um, the the thing that I think is super important, I think for candidates to understand, is that there has to be a balance between the hard skills and the the social skills
Of
and the
course.
soft skills. Yeah. Would you agree? Is that
Yeah.
something that you're saying as well from what labor?
A hundred
Uh,
percent.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really about like having some kind of relationship with other people, and knowing that um, even in a small way, you guys have each other's back within the team, and you're all
Right.
working toward the same goal. I like that you mentioned somebody doesn't play well in the sandbox, because that is what happens quite often in places that make people want to look for another job, is if somebody on their team is not playing well in the sandbox.
Yeah.
So I don't think any employer wants to bring somebody who can't make at least a little personal connection. Um, my mother is actually in employee resource counseling, and she'll coach me on how to coach people, on how to talk to folks who may be like experiencing somebody not playing well, or even try to mitigate somebody who is seeing one perspective, which is their own, and not able to kind of shift their view to be more team oriented. So it's so much about that. Like, the culture is just, how well does this person fit in with the personalities on the team?
Yeah, and that's a topic that I wanted to also touch on, which is this terminology of culture fit. And we hear that a lot, but really, what does that mean? And and it could mean different things to different companies. Obviously, each company has their own culture, and fit, could be very different from one company to the next. So when and one of the things that I found in when I was working as a recruiter also was that part of it was probably the most difficult to do the matching on. It's easy to do the skills, right? Like, either you got the skills or you don't. But then that culture fit piece is so gray. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what's your experience of that? How do you determine that culture fit for that candidate? Kind of that matchmaking piece, and saying, okay, these two, they can get married now.
I love that example. So first, on how to get the culture fit is to understand the culture. We have account managers. So I work with candidates, and my account managers work with managers. They meet with their managers, their hiring managers at the different companies so often. Like it's basically monthly and then touch points in the middle based on what is going down with the candidate or like how we're recruiting for them. So we ask a lot of questions and we want to understand like the organization as a whole, the not just the who reports to who, but the whole like hygiene factors of an employment place too. Just so when I'm talking to candidates, I can ask them the right questions to make sure that I know the right fit. And this goes down to like how many people are on the team so I can understand. Does my candidate like to work on a big team or a small team? How does the manager like to manage? Does this manager want to hold your hand because you're newer, or does this manager want you to get up and go? That can be a huge mismatch if one of those management style and employment styles don't work out. Other things about the culture is like what kind of initiatives does this company drive and foster, and how would that match up with what somebody likes? For example, one of our clients, or a lot of our clients, are in healthcare, and a big initiative there is proactive health approach. So they're going to want their people to also kind of live that active lifestyle, if not, care about it.
Right.
So some environments might be more relaxed. Maybe people would feel like more or less comfortable speaking with people who are like trying to, I don't know, lobby against smoking, stuff like that. So how relaxed does somebody want to be in their environment? Our managers find out almost everything about the team, and over time, when we place people in that team, we have personal understanding of each player. And then on my side, what I vet for cultural fit is describing as much as I can in as much detail about the project, as well as the people and how I feel it's like how the people have reported even working on the project, how much they like it. And that gets me more information from the candidate where they say, oh, I like that they're being creative this way in their approach, or I like that the team sits together and talks to each other for a long time about how to approach something, versus maybe a candidate goes, oh, I only want to really be in one meeting a week with them because of X, Y, or Z. And believe me, out of 45 places, there's an environment for pretty much everyone. So we have managers that are hands-on, managers that are hands-off. It's the culture fit really means like, will this person be happy? When they're in there.
I think that's
I hope
the
that
main
answered the
thing.
question.
And I think at the end of the day, it's like, do you like work? Do you want to work with this person? Because you got sometimes you spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your own family, right? In a 40-hour work week.
It's true.
Yeah. So I wanted to also segue into the types of tech skills that you're finding are the most in demand right now. And then also you had mentioned something about some type of an initiative that TEKsystems is doing for training. Maybe we can talk about that too.
That one would be pretty brief because it's still in pretty infancy stages. But in terms of but I can still talk about it. But what we're looking for right now and seeing for tech skills is kind of reactionary to certain things. So in the healthcare field and in the finance field, we're seeing business maybe getting a little tight, or however, everybody has that. So the tech skills that are going to be required there right now is harnessing data and understanding not only just like what we have right now and what is going to be predictive. So we're seeing a lot of need in data. Other things that we've seen a lot of need in recently was network infrastructure and cybersecurity, because COVID really threw us for a loop. People were at work one day and told it's not safe to come to work the next day, and still expected to do everything that they needed to do in their job. So what we saw the most was people getting really like, not people, but like our companies being really overextended in having to work extra and set up these VPNs. And then what comes after making sure everyone can work is hopefully it comes concurrently, but the security of the endpoints. People are doing this from their homes. So the trends that we saw was a lot of like network infrastructure and support. Also lots of cloud these days. That's just something that Hawaii's been trying to do for a long time
Mm,
because the mainline companies are doing it. But
mhm.
we're moving toward cloud and trying to get a lot of the solid old mainframe type infrastructure onto the cloud so that it's more sustainable and doesn't run out of time of use. I
Mhm,
don't
mhm,
know how techy the audience is, but some like lots of physical hardware
mhm.
has a endpoint where they stop getting supported. The cloud helps
Right.
to mitigate this because it's like storage as a service
Constantly, and
or
it's
it's
constantly
application
updated.
usage as a service.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you're basically putting in the investment to make sure somebody else can keep up with some stuff that would be harder to keep up with for 20 plus years.
So interesting. So data, infrastructure, cybersecurity, and cloud are the three top
And
areas
cloud.
you're starting to see.
Yes. And on the more functional side, we're seeing a lot of process improvement just because
Oh.
operations need to be a little bit sharper and slimmer
Hmm.
with the way that the economy is. So a lot of companies will start wanting to be a little bit um, more refined in their processes.
Which at the end of the day kind of sounds like that sort of like translates into less labor cost, right? If you're being more efficient, then maybe you don't have to hire, you can do the job with two people versus five or something, uh, something of
Along
that
those
effect.
lines,
Yeah.
yeah,
Along those lines. Yeah. That's what the other
mm-hmm.
thing I was going to ask you is about COVID. Have you seen, I mean, I know at first everything just got bottlenecked and shrank really really tight. But are you starting to see some loosening up of that, or what are you seeing now in terms of the labor market movement as a whole?
Of course, yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot more opening up because there was a lot of projects that just got put on hold
Uh huh.
just due to uncertainty. Those were not projects that they could like all these companies could necessarily afford to just not do. So it's kind of like recovery time where we're going towards those projects. But we actually
Mm-hmm.
saw a lot of surge needs. So in terms of the hiring market, it was advantageous to quite a few people because there was that immediate need to help go digital. We were actually much I felt like we were very busy during the COVID time, just with the immediacy that things were being moved towards. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, the the bottleneck is opening, and a lot of people are getting more flexibility, which has been something that we'd wanted in Hawaii for a while.
Yeah, I'm thinking also that probably companies are going to need to move to a hybrid model. I'm not sure everybody's going to be rushing back to the office. So there's probably going to be, I think, a balance of the work at home with some days in the office. Probably start to see a little bit of
Yeah,
that.
that'll be
Um,
great for traffic.
Yes. Oh my God. That's the one thing. If there was a silver lining about the pandemic right now, it's just that it was so nice to not be on the road and not and inching along with like
Yes,
1 minute, every minute. So yeah, I
it's
really
perfect.
appreciated that. Well, Kelsey, we're running at the end of our time, so we'll have to leave it here. But thank you so much for giving us a snapshot of what's happening in the labor market, and certainly learned a lot about how you can help people find work as a recruiter. So that's something that's super important for our listeners as well. You've been watching Work Reimagined on ThinkTech Hawaii. And today we've been discussing what job skills employers want with Kelsea Yamashita. And Kelsey, how can people learn a little bit more about tech systems?
Yeah, you can definitely visit our website, TEKsystems.com, or reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. And I'd be happy to talk individually with anybody interested. It's just my name, Kelsea
Awesome,
Yamashita.
awesome, awesome,
Yep.
great. Thank you. And I'm Ruby Menon, your host, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of Work Reimagined. Until next time, please be safe and take care of one another. Aloha.